Doing it live. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad that you're here. Let me get my stuff together here. We're excited. Tonight's a great episode. We're supposed to have Kinga Masztalerz on the show tonight. Should be a great episode. If you are paying any attention to the Red Bull X-Alps that's happening right now, it's an adventure race. I'm going to share some links. We'll get you all tied in so you know what's going on here. Let me just fix this. So glad that you're here. Welcome. Paraglidingtalk.com. Let's pause this. There we go. Now we got plenty of bandwidth. Sometimes I forget to turn stuff off and then my internet goes super slow. Tonight, you're joined with moderation team. Brad Stevenson is with us. Nick Fasekas is also in moderation. Sean Nafsker is with us. Anthony Peregrino is somewhere in some other state or something. He's hanging out. He'll pop in and out. Kinga's supposed to be with us. It's 3 a.m. right now in the Alps, and the teams are sleeping. Before we get into business, I want to talk a little bit about sponsors. The show is brought to you by a few different organizations. One of those is PPG Zone. Josh Perry runs that. It is a social media outlet for paragliding people. So if you're a paramotor or a free flight guy, you can jump on there, create an account, and then you have your own little place. Not everybody gets to join, but you can if you're a pilot. Also, PPG Smoke, if you are interested in getting some cool stuff for your paramotoring and free flight. I use some of their stuff for free flight. Website is ppgsmoke.com. Also, if you purchase the Unity headset, you pre-order those, you can get your name in the hat to win a paramotor, just the motor itself. And so order yours today. ppgsmoke.com. Also, the show is brought to you by paramotorprops.com. They have great deals on props if you accidentally blow one up like I almost did the other day. I'll show you the picture later. They can get you what you need quickly and for a great deal. Also, the show is brought to you by paraorangeproducts.com. Paraorange.com or paraorangeproducts.com. Go get yourself some gear from them. They are awesome folks. And they got great deals. So tonight, let me just do a quick screen share. I want you guys to see what's happening. It's an adventure race, and it's probably the coolest adventure race on the planet, realistically. We're talking absolute mind, physical. You get no sleep. I mean, it's crazy.
No, this is like a
marathon,
kilometers, right?
So
like a marathon / like kind of like they do with like boating and then or swimming and then running and then hiking and flying and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So it's run, hike, or fly 1,000 kilometers normally from Salzburg to Monaco. But this year's a little different, right, Brad? So it's a little bit whack. They're doing like a big triangle thing. Big out and back. Still about 1,000 kilometers. Not convenient at all. I'm just going to say it right now. So the guys who created this, they maybe had to consider what cities were shut down for COVID reasons and all kinds of different things were happening. Let me do a quick screen share to get an idea of what's happening here. So here we have our top leaders. Kriegel Maurer is typically the winner each year, and he's a beast. The guy is nonstop. He's very hard to keep up with. There are 3 guys that are close. Where's Kriegel at? Oh, I unselected him, didn't I? There we go. Let's get him back on here. So, yeah, Kriegel Maurer. I think this is the 7th one. There's a good chance he's going to win this one too, just because of his track record. No one has beat him yet.
Dude, he's like a machine.
Yeah,
I saw last year's, or not last year's, but the years before that. And I tell you what, it's half that crap most of us couldn't even do, let alone, do and then win. That was something. That was amazing.
Patrick Von Canel, I'm probably going to butcher some of these names, so just bear with me, and I apologize if you're one of the guys. Also, this guy's name is Benoit Outers. So he's in third place, technically on the map right now, where he's sleeping because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. He is actually in first place technically. I'm just technicality right now. I would be mad about that if I was Benoit. So anyways, what they have here is a couple turn points, and we're going to get into the depth. I know this is just kind of basics of what's happening in the Red Bull X-Alps, but I want to just give you guys an overall and get you an understanding, because we're going to talk about all the aspects that we can about this race. Starts in Salzburg, and then you have these turn points. So they hiked up a hill. They took off in some pretty heavy winds. Did you catch that the launch in the beginning, Brad? They had 40 km per hour winds, that's creeping up into the 20-mile-an-hour range, really close to 20. And there were gusts up to 60, and these guys were launching. So
Yeah,
gusts up to 60 kilometers an
they
hour.
wouldn't actually allow any of them to launch until the winds kind of died down.
Here we go. We are live. Okay, good. She's messaging now, so she should be jumping on any second. Yeah, that was crazy. So also, I've been catching some of the little videos here and there of some of these guys launching. One of those, and I can't really share any of these with them because they're all Red Bull, and they will penalize me for copyright infringement by using their footage. But we can talk about stuff.
The Red Bull, yeah.
Yeah, they can't stop us from talking about it just yet. Coming soon. They'll be able to shut you down. But yeah, a couple of these guys are launching literally into super thick fog. Today they got rained out. It's day 4. And I mean, they're creeping up on day 5, right? So 4 days, 15 hours in. And so we're gonna ask Kinga a little bit about what it's like around day 4, day 5, and what it feels like. There's 12 turn points. We're spanning the Alps in a couple different ways. It's insane what these guys are able to do. Right now, I would say today was the biggest gap that the leaders took. So if you look at, here's Aaron Durgatti, he's pretty far back. He's 10 kilometers back. And then Pinoy's with him. We go to the next guy, and look at how far away that 6th place person is. I mean, he is that's a whole nother day. I don't know. I could be wrong. If he's on the ground, that's a long walk. Paul Guschebauer should be not too far behind. So Paul Guschebauer, by the way, has been on the show. He was a great guest, and he is the guy that you would put your money on to be the next the guy that could give Kriegel Maurer a run for his money. But what we're looking at is a massive gap. So when we go to the next guy, now we're really getting deep. So the reason for that is there was huge storms today. And feel free to chime in at any point, Brad, if you have comments. I know there was a bunch of cool things that happened. One thing that I wanted to note was that Kinga could not participate in the Red Bull X-Alps because she broke her foot. And so we'll talk about that when she comes on, hopefully. And also something to note is that Paul Guschelbauer in the last, 2 months, broke his leg. And so
he just recovered. He's only been able to train like 2 months of the last year.
Yeah, it's bad. Like,
he got the doctor's clearance from Red Bull that he was going to be able to compete like 2 weeks ago.
Brutal. Yeah, I remember seeing it show up on show up on the internet somewhere that he had broke his foot. I'm like, no, way too soon. And we weren't sure if we were going to have the X-Alps. And yeah, I'm glad that they decided to have it. But Guschelbauer is pushing through. The last picture I saw of him, he was sitting in the rain and obviously not doing so good. So we're going to talk a little bit about injury, flying after injuries, and learning from that. Also, something else that I wanted to mention was the guys at the back. And we'll talk a little bit about those, what's going on down there. Now, this guy, I wrote his name down because I didn't want to mess it up. Where did I write that down? Yes. Neondens. He's this guy down here. He is at the very back of the pack. Now, he's just coming up on turn point 5. But he has a great adventure channel if you want to follow his stuff. He's always doing these big hike and flies. I think he's from New Zealand, so he's a Kiwi, and really nice guy. Everything that he posts is really super cool, super adventurous. But he is in last place, so
yeah,
he had to pull his all-nighter.
He's got a sprained ankle.
Oh, really?
And that occurred. Yeah, Kinga can probably tell you all about it.
Bummer. See what's going on here. I'm getting messages here. Okay. Send this invite. Excuse me, folks, while I send Kinga the code here. 892.
So one thing to note, I've got this pulled up in the 3D view, which is just freaking amazing. And Nick there in last place, like on the 2D it shows that he's paused because obviously he's sleeping, but they actually have him marked as out, as eliminated.
Who is that?
Nick.
Oh, really?
On the 3D map.
So yeah, his
I mean, it's impossible at this point where he's at to actually reach Gavin on foot.
And with a sprained ankle. So yeah, realistically, Gavin McClurg is the next guy to get eliminated.
In 48 hours.
In 48 hours, yeah. So let's see where he's at compared to. Okay, so he's at probably about. Well, I guess you could just look at the kilometer difference there. 58, 68, 78, 88, 98. So, gosh, he's like 35 kilometers away. Sad because 35 kilometers. That's like remember when we flew from Elsinore to Saboba? that's like that's their gap right now. Gavin's got to close.
But anything can happen. If you look at Tommy yesterday, he flew like 196 kilometers total, whereas the other people in the mid pack only managed half that.
You're talking about 90. Tommy Friedrich, right? The kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was interested. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that. I think Kinga just joined.
Nope, we got Tony Boyer.
Tony Boyer is here too. Kinga is
sorry
to
disappoint.
I got the map in full screen, here. So it's hard to see.
Yeah, no,
anybody.
I'm just waiting for her.
Hi guys, I'm here and I can see you, but I guess you can't see me.
Hi, Kinga.
Let's see here. Hi, Kinga.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
We are.
All right.
Okay, sorry for that. I'm just hopeless. There's always some drama on my side. Sorry for that. Thank you so much for keep hoping that it will work and keep inviting me to your awesome show, because it's just I love talking to you. I love being here, but there's like always something. Just
it's
this
totally
time.
Fine.
Sorry, this time, but we are here. What did I miss?
Oh, we were just talking about a couple things about the X-Alps. So tonight's show, we're going to talk all about X-Alps stuff, and we're going to talk about you. Okay. I have questions that I already lined up, so we're just going to go right for it and start asking questions. So today is day 4.5, so they're creeping up on day 5. And what I want to ask you is, what was it like for you waking up? Because right now it's about 3:15 there. What was it like waking up on day 4 and or day 5 and getting ready for your race? Try to bring us in.
It's a very good question, because it's really a question about the dynamics of this race, and such a long race, that on the one hand, the adrenaline and this rush and the enthusiasm and all the anticipation from before, because there's quite a bit of buildup, of course, before the race, not only when you're preparing for such a big event like Red Bull X-Alps, it's not only months and months of training, preparation, team management, and all the logistics behind it, but of course also this last days or last weeks and last days, and especially this last week in Wagrain with all the photo shoots and briefings and technical briefings, all the other athletes, and the last gear management, the last trimming and weight checks and all the other stuff. So when it finally starts, there's so much adrenaline and so much rush that it carries you on for first days. And this third, fourth, fifth day, now fifth morning, is this this moment where it all really settled down already, and all this. So there's a few aspects of it. One is mental, and we'll come back to it in a moment. Another is simply that technically it's not anymore like goggle flying like the first day or two, when you see constantly other pilots, you follow them or you race them or you run away from them, you try to outrun someone on the glide, and then we following like tracking, we are getting so excited that someone is on the first or fifth position, but the distances are still like 2-3 kilometers of difference, which basically doesn't mean anything at this point, unless you do some radical mistakes. Of course, they all add up, but in general, everything can still happen. Now, after a few days, you can really see how this pack stretched out within 200 kilometers, and it also means that they are starting fighting. So people in the front start fighting with completely different weather systems than people at the back, and they are completely different terrain. They can be in completely different universe, basically. So it's making for a really interesting race for following. For me personally, it was definitely this time when I felt like this adrenaline of the start of the first days really like washed out, and then you realize that you have still 8 days to go.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it just changes dramatically the energy. And then this is a moment when you can really see how some teams really regain their flow. Like we could see beautiful comeback from Maxim, who made some little mistakes at the beginning, but then really reconnected with everything. He has a great team. He has quite a great experience, and he just keeps going and chasing the very front hard. And we can also see some teams losing the momentum, and in my case it was definitely we lost momentum at this point. We made a big mistake there on the way, listening to some local wisdom, and really lost quite a bit of time, and also this is also the moment when it starts getting more and more important how well the team works together. So the better is your teamwork, the better it's not only like single members of team, but also the better the whole team works together, the better you are briefed, the better you know each other, the better you all know what do you need, the bigger the chance that this momentum will just, you can even with the good teamwork, it can even make this difference between losing momentum and throwing next gear and actually speeding up. So yeah, definitely a very interesting time in the race.
You brought up a good point that once there's a gap, like today, there was a huge gap that was made because of weather. And you have guys that are at the back that are in a totally different weather system. They potentially they have an opportunity to maybe catch up, or the opposite, it's the gap gets wider. So I wanted to also ask you, let's talk a little bit about you mentioned mental. Let's talk about day 4.5, 5, physical. What are you feeling? What do you think is, who's going to dominate in this phase of the race?
I mean, we can see at this point who is dominating in the race, and there's no surprises there really. We are not surprised that Kriegel, Patrick, or Aaron, or Paul or Maxim are somewhere in the front. This ranking, this detailed ranking changes, but we are not. They're not Benoit. They're not new names. This is probably different to some other last races because some of the you're sharing screen. Some of the last few editions, we had a really strong chase from a rookie, either Sebastian Huber or Benoit or Maxim, or so there was really like strong rookie chaser. This time it's a little bit different because all these rookies are now, not all of them, but Maxim, Benoit are now vets, and they are just chasing even harder. But also we could see how Kriegel is probably always the really good example of playing this race, playing the proper and just perfect mind game in this race, because you could see some people were really excited that he's not leading from the very beginning. And on the one hand, yes, this gap, I already talked about it a little bit. I did this kind of live banter daily, and I talked about it a little bit yesterday or 2 days ago, that on the one hand, it's not so dramatic that he's leading for 10 days straight, 100 kilometers ahead, but still obviously leading and controlling the race. But at the same time, part of it that this race is closer in the front is basically that these athletes can have learned a lot from each other and inspired each other. And this, like, we all learn from Kriegel and others, but they also learn from each other. So this is a lot of cooperation and healthy racing, and a lot happening there in this front pack. Everything can still happen. However, we see that the more into Switzerland, the more Kriegel is. Yeah, I mean, you can't beat it. You can't beat this knowledge of, it's basically his backyard. He's in Patrick. They live basically, their neighbors live in the same valley. You can't really beat. And now everything can still happen. But we already saw for example, with choice by Paul Guschelbauer, who was just on their heels, and he chose the route a little bit south, going into Switzerland, chose this, which is the route that we discussed it actually before the race, when I still thought I would participate, that on the good weather, that's the way to go. Basically, it's one of this highways of the Alps, where some of the biggest triangles and most reliable big triangles, FAI triangles, have been flown in the history of the alpine flying. But at the same time, if the weather is bad, and if you understand really what's happening there, or what was happening when they were crossing this place, you can see that it was longer, and in these conditions it's just farther. So it's really this knowledge of little local twitches in weather, and understanding how this weather in very high. It's also they entered now from this Bavarian hills and forests. They really entered high mountains again, and they're some of the highest mountains in the Alps, and some of the deepest valleys and strongest valley winds and the most unforgiving weather. So to understand exactly the topography, it's a huge advantage that Swiss now have in their hands. And basically the route this year is going quite a bit through the backyard of Patrick and Kriegel. They told me they were quite excited about it. So of course it's an advantage that we can't.
It's funny because they're really close to their house right now, actually, as we speak right now, but there is rain and thunder and lightning, and I mean, it is just pouring down. And so they had to hike through the terrain that they know the best. So they all got humbled right now. Although they're in the front, they're all probably wishing that they had the air, because this would have been the place where they really would have made the gap longer.
Of course, however, remember that if the weather was really good and they would be all doing 3,500 meters or 10,000 feet, and they would be all flying well, then there wouldn't be a problem. But actually, when the weather is really nasty, I don't know, probably you saw the footage of Kriegel taking off from Furka Pass. I mean, it's raining, it's side wind. He's basically flying into the rain, and this is something that saved him quite a bit of hiking, quite a bit of time of hiking over this pass. But this is definitely not something that someone who is coming from from another part of the world has never really been there in these conditions. Doesn't matter if you flew over. I flew over Furka Pass many times, but it was on a good flying weather, and it's very different to understand the terrain good enough to pull off this type of takeoff and safe. And so it may mean that this knowledge, even if most of the time they have to hike, it still matters. This local knowledge really still matters.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's talk a little bit about the guys at the back. Right now, we mentioned earlier that Nick, and I always forget how to say his name.
Neonens.
He is at that critical point. Brad mentioned earlier that he thinks he may have been eliminated as of right now, but I'm not sure because it's still showing. I'll screen share again.
He will be eliminated. Right now, it's unavoidable. He will be eliminated at 6 a.m. Of the local time. So if I understand well, we have still a moment before it happens, because now it's 1:30 here afternoon. So it means that it's 3:30 in the morning in the Alps. So yeah, he pulled out the night pass. He had quite a rough. His whole race was rough, and even before the race, he just a few days during the preparation week, few days before the race, he sprained his ankle at top landing, so it was quite swollen and bothering him a little bit. Of course he claimed that nothing happened, but when you have 1,200 kilometers to hike throughout the Alps and hike, it does matter, of course. Then he made a couple of bad decisions in flight too, which may happen always, and it wasn't so important at this point of the race, because at the beginning usually he is quite a long warm-up in the race, and then he gains. He's one of these athletes that maybe in 2015 he was very last at the end of first day, and then he made it all the way to Monaco at the end of the race. So he's one of these athletes that is really warming up and gaining momentum the more the race progresses usually. But this time, together with this sprained ankle, and when you look at his statistics, he didn't hike as fast as he could. What's more, yesterday, after 2 flights in rather hideous conditions, with a lot of wind and some rain and etc., he hiked to Kreuzek, hoping for a last flight, and then using his night pass, he was still determined to not be eliminated, to just keep pushing. But then when they finally got there, he wasn't able to fly, and then because he wasn't able to fly off the mountain, they just, it wasn't much to fight for anymore, because he was so far away behind Gavin at this point that even if he hiked on this sprained ankle, let's not forget, he wouldn't really be able to pull off. So real shame. He summed that up in his style. He said that I'm saving it for Eiger Tour. It's coming in a few weeks. So it happens. It can happen, of course. So sorry to see him go, but yeah. So again, this is part of the game.
Gavin McClurg, he's a neighbor of ours. He is next on the, if we could just say, the hit list. He's got a pretty big gap to cover. What advice would you give if you were his ground support on how he could catch up to the next France competitor, and that's Lori? I don't want to say this wrong. Is it
Genovese?
Yeah. So, Gavin McClurg is, that's quite a distance that he's got to cover. What can he possibly do? Obviously a night pass is going to be something on the table. What advice
So let's
would
not
you
forget
offer?
that Gavin still has 2 days because the elimination and X-Men comes every second day. So if it
Right.
happens this morning, it's not tomorrow morning, it's next morning.
Right.
So 2 days in Red Bull X-Alps, it can really, everything can happen. Laura herself was, a moment ago, she was in the middle of the pack, and then one glide too far, one wet glide too far, she you probably heard about it, that she threw her reserve over
Yes.
power lines, crashed into trees. It took quite a few hours to security services to extract her from this tree. They had to cut off all her, not only her glider, but also she had to cut it off just to be able to get off this tree. And it was cut off her glider and her parachute, and altogether it was rather shaking experience.
Sure.
So again, everything can still happen there. We'll also see, because for now, next day after, she made some progress, of course, and she seems very determined, and her team also is doing great job with putting it all together and taking care of all the logistics around it. But also she seems very determined. But it also it's such an experience that to just shake it off and keep going hard for next 8 days, you have to be slightly inhuman. So of course it affects. We all have mental side to it. So it, of course, it affects her, and she said it very honestly, how scared and shaken she was, and it would be really weird if she wasn't. So she's super brave to just keep pushing. But how it will affect her performance with the next days, it's really difficult to say. Probably even she can't say, because it really depends on the weather and other aspects. So this is one part of it. Another is that Gavin, as we all know, is fighting a little bit of different battle too this year, because after throwing his reserve very low just a couple of weeks or 3 weeks before the beginning of Red Bull X-Alps, and hitting ground hard, he talked about it from this moment that when I talked to him at the beginning of June, he said that it really shook him heavily, but he was still hoping that he'll just got over it. And again, he's very experienced athlete. It's not the first close call, not only as a pilot, but also whitewater kayaker he had.
Yeah.
But
it's
we
not
can
the
see
first
that
time
it
he's
affected
thrown.
him.
Yeah.
Also not the first time. Famous story when he threw and his reserve over the desert, and his reserve just flew away because he did not touch it. So so things but also we all change with time. Now he's a father, and also he's just I guess his priorities maybe shifted slightly a little bit, and
I
it
know,
would be
I heard
also
that.
weird if it didn't. Again, it's all the experience. It's all about finding this risk management ratio that is right for you at this time. And I have impression, especially this year, following it so close. For obvious reasons, I didn't follow it in 2019 live and didn't focus so on what was happening in social media, etc. But this year, it's really hit me how much the official streaming and athletes even themselves, how much you can say they are promoting all the they are showing various takeoffs or landings that are basically close calls.
Yes.
Where pilots get a little bit lucky or made some mistake on the way, and okay, they got away with it. But calling it breathtaking or epic or mastery, it's not exactly the accent that I would put on it.
Right.
I understand why athletes make this decision, why they take off into the rain, why they take off into howling wind, why
Clouds.
they push themselves into some really dodgy landings. I understand why they're doing it. And I've done some stuff during Red Bull X-Alps that I wouldn't do normally on my leisure weekend flying.
Right.
But at the same time, promoting it, and then not even including into the official streaming the fact that that it is on some broken leg by Ken Oguma, or reserve throw over power lines by Lori, or Michał Gerlach went into parachute, crashed on the roof. There's a lot of happening there that it's like this other side of the coin. And I would really like to, I was actually thinking that I would like to talk about it a little bit more, not necessarily now, but in general, like just we should probably take it all. with a grain of salt what's happening there, because I have impression that there are a lot of less experienced pilots watch it and then they think, oh, flying in the rain is okay. I saw it so many times on Red Bull X-Alps. Yeah, but maybe you didn't exactly see the outcome of it,
Yeah.
And the outcome was a few hours long extraction close to power lines from a tree, for example.
Right.
There's the other side to all of it. So just,
Good point.
again,
Speaking of sponsors, I have to mention one of our sponsors, American Allied Drains and Plumbing. If you're in the San Diego area, they are a great plumbing company. And if you mention Paragliding Talk, you will get a 10% discount on your plumbing services. So you can reach out to them by calling 844-777-9055. That's American Allied Drains and Plumbing. Also, the show is brought to you by Nebraska PPG. Josh Bowden runs a school in Nebraska. If you're interested in getting signed up with him for some training, I know they're training like mad over there. Go sign up with him. There's a link in the description so you can get a hold of him. Thank you, Kent Stamey, for donating $10 to the Super Chat. You are awesome. Also, I want to mention this show is brought to you by iFly Indiana Powered Paragliding. If you're interested in getting into paramotoring, there's no better place to get proper training. And that is the website for them is iflyindiana.com. We want to spin the wheel to give away something tonight. I want to give away a something or something.
Yeah.
Let's spin the wheel, shall we,
Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so no more names because the names are all filled up.
Yep. We got 58 people, so there should be 58.
No, we got 54. 54.
Yep. Oh, there's 58
people.
now.
Well, there may be 58, but there was 54 people
They
in the
talk.
chat. They didn't talk. We got some stalkers, some creepers.
Some lurking Larrys.
Lurking Larrys. There we go, Robert. We're spinning.
All right.
I'd like to thank Kinga, by the way. She's an awesome guest. She shares a lot of knowledge and a lot of her experiences. Very grateful to have her on here. Thank you, Kinga, for making it in here.
Tonight we're going to give away.
Thank you for having me and bearing with me.
Yeah. We're going to give away. It is a OTB hat. It stands for over the back. This is by OTB Airwear. It's a local guy, and he's one of the sponsors. Super cool guy. He's been on the show. You should go back and watch that episode. It was like 3 episodes ago. Oh, that's close to Matt. That
very
Craig
close.
Taylor.
I don't know. It could be JP. I don't know.
Oh, it might be JP too.
Could be. I don't know.
One of them.
I think it might.
Craig Taylor.
Congratulations, buddy.
Congratulations, winner, chicken dinner. Send this out to you right away, my friend. So all kinds of just great things happening with this race. And I really like this topic that you brought up about safety. It is absolutely critical that when you get involved in air sports, that you take it seriously. This is why this show became a show, is because of an event that I had, a Cascade event that I had over one of our flying sites called Palomar. And I learned a bunch of valuable lessons that day. And I said, I've got to I've got to learn more. And I want to help people that are maybe on a path that is not a great path. Like I was on a pretty, I had intermediate syndrome before I had a P2. So it's a bad combination of crazy and flying. And so that is a great point that you brought up earlier, Kinga, about glamorizing these dangerous events. Now, on the side of Red Bull, this is something that they've kind of cornered the niche with extreme sports. And I think that's why Red Bull likes the X-Alps. And so I think it's a great.
Again, I think it's fantastic that that there is footage of this daredevil and close calls, etc.
Yeah.
However, if you only see in a live in an official stories only this side, and you don't see all the outcome, because for example, this lowest throw or or details about Ken Oguma's injury, they never appeared in Red Bull X-Alps official streaming. So I understand also why organizers of Red Bull X-Alps do it. It's not only about Red Bull. Red Bull is all about extreme sports, and they love it. It's along their line of communication and image and PR. But also there's so many other sponsors and in Red Bull X-Alps, and also so many partners, turn point partners. And I can imagine that a local mayor of a local town ski resort loves the idea of having all this visitors and the event there in summer when it's a dead ski season, but doesn't necessarily like pilots, the idea of pilots crashing on the roofs and landing on the busy roads and throwing reserves over power lines. So I understand this balance. It's just for us, when we follow it, just don't get carried away with the idea that it's all so super normal risky or easy, or if they do it, especially this flying with the rain, that seems, of course, the weather has been quite difficult this year until now, and it's not super easy still, but there's been quite a bit of rain, and the whole race, and I mean, pilots will fly in the rain no matter what, and the paragliding equipment is lightweight gliders, lighter and lighter and lighter and more performant. They really don't want to fly in the rain, and this is something that when you take a big glider of the normal weight and fly in the rain with it, it will last way longer than the modern X-Alps two-liner made of 15 gram dynama, 15 gram per square meter dynama. So this is another aspect of it. It's all super fine-tuned like this Formula One, but at the same time, the conditions are not exactly the smooth asphalt. It's a bit like taking this Formula One car off-road, and then it's just like, and hoping for the best outcome.
Now, Robert, I got a good question.
Great point.
I got a really good question. Okay. Is there any kind of like nutritional supplements or additional vitamins that you take before a competition like this to help your body get the nutrients and everything that it needs for physical activity and long endurance type things? Is there anything that people can do to help them to prepare for maybe an extenuated time in the air or a very active kind of thing?
There's plenty of supplements, of course, and there's also a list of forbidden supplements, and because by Red Bull X-Alps rules, it's the same list as for Olympic athletes, but most of the athletes supplement with something, whatever it is. Either it's proteins or multivitamins or creatine or Gavin is well known from finding new ideas for his body to perform better. If it's like protein made of some crickets, or if it's some new gel that will keep you going throughout the night, etc. So I guess the very important part here, it's really tested well before, because talking about Gavin, his first Red Bull X-Alps, he was extremely suffering badly. He was like swollen, his feet were in a horrible shape, and part of it later he discovered was this type of gel that was supposed to be energizing, but his body just didn't respond too well for it. So definitely, no matter, it's like with nutrition, every athlete has their own fuel and their own ways of dealing when to throw in some sugar or when to throw in some fats, and when to what do they crave for. But at the same time, some athletes thrive on sugar, some athletes thrive on avocados and peanut butter. It really depends also on the personal preferences and personal metabolism. But the most important part is to really understand it well before the race, and then not forget to eat and drink.
Well, I mean, is it uncommon for people to see like a dietitian before like a competition or something to understand if they're nutrient deficient, or if there's a certain nutrient that might help them in ways that they're not able to?
Interesting question, because there are two types of athletes in Red Bull X-Alps in general. Some of them are like Gavin, Aaron, or Kriegel, who have it all really sorted out with the tested and with the like coaches and nutritionists and this and that type of preparation. And there's another type of athletes, and especially rookies, or also athletes who don't have the same type of resources. Maybe they're not professional athletes, because we also need to remember that there are some athletes here, another Mexican team, but actually they're all coming from your country right now, Eduardo and Mexican team. They all have jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and they just fly into the Europe, especially because of COVID this year. They just fly in a few days before the race and basically get over jet lag, and the prologue starts. So this is a very different type of commitment and preparation that they can put into it. So even more, admiration and kudos for them for doing what they're doing out there and performing so well. But I would say that there are some athletes who just, for example, like Nick Nanens, he would never even think of seeing the dietitian. He will just eat whatever has calories and whatever he craves for. And actually it may be perfectly fine, especially if you've been doing it for a while and know your body very well and understand what it needs. So as long as it keeps you going, it's just, it's, I guess also, it's always about finding the right balance between finding right gear and clothing and shoes and logistics around it, but also not overkilling it, because some rookies may focus so much and so hard on their on finding this perfect gear or being that then when something is off, they just lose the momentum. And it's all about, at the end, it's all about just whatever keeps you going.
Let's talk a little bit about these new, the next generation pilots. Thomas Friedrich, he right out of the gate launched I think he was the first to launch. I believe this is his first year. He's very young. I think, what is he, 24, something like that?
So Thomas is a very, very young pilot. He's only 20-year-old, the youngest pilot in the history of Red Bull X-Alps. But also he's not an inexperienced pilot. He was Szymon Oberonev's supporter twice already, and he basically grew up not only flying, because his father owned the school in Austria, paragliding school, and he not only started flying basically when he was baby, but also he grew up flying around and participating in Red Bull X-Alps in other ways. So definitely he's not an unexperienced pilot. I would say that he's way more experienced at this age of 20 than I was when I participated in my first Red Bull X-Alps 2019. He also showed that he is extremely fit. During the prologue, he showed that he can stay with the best ones. However, again, let's remember he came third in the prologue. Just 8 minutes after Kriegel and Maxim, who came a minute later. So he took a podium. He earned an extra night pass and definitely showed that it was a very strong start in the race. However, of course, prologue is a very, very different dynamic. It's like a baby race, a little warm-up. It's a fun event, but it's completely different story than Red Bull X-Alps. Completely different pace and completely different things matter. So when he got to Geisberg as the first athlete, becoming King of Geisberg, it's a nice title, doesn't really give you anything, but nice to then everybody had extremely high hopes, and he took off into the air as the first one, and from there, from then there were ups and downs. I would say he keeps going, but it's it's a very different type of flying what's happening in Red Bull X-Alps, and especially now when the whole peloton is more stretched. It's really about not so much about flying fast in good conditions like during prologue, but definitely more about being able to just put your head down and keep going, and also using some conditions that normally we recognize are unflyable. And this aspect, what is flyable for you and what isn't, is probably the most important part of strategy in Red Bull X-Alps. And we can see, we talked about it already, about the risk and dodgy takes off and dodgy landings. It's moved constantly. It's constantly, the athletes constantly push these boundaries. But again, finding this right balance, it's a big part of the game.
Speaking of different flying style, Theo De Blick, he is an acro pilot. He's known for acro. He's got all kinds of championships doing acro, and he got invited to fly. Talk a little bit about that, and talk about the advantages of being a professional acro pilot.
Theo De Blick is an extremely accomplished acro pilot, definitely one of the very, very best, if not currently the best. It's of course it's like best where but definitely very, very, very accomplished, very skilled top acro pilot. And this is basically his main area of expertise. He participated in a couple of hike and fly smaller events, but didn't ever had cross-country or hike and fly achievements comparable to most of the athletes in the Red Bull X-Alps, and especially to other French pilots. There was a lot of bad blood among French pilots who also applied for Red Bull X-Alps this year and had some actual, hike and fly and speed hiking and endurance and cross-country achievements and never got invited, while Theo did. So, there's of course a lot of I don't want to say politics, but a lot of other aspects that organizers introduce to make the race exciting and interesting for people to follow. And a big social media following and big social media presence by Theo definitely had its. And he never tried to hide it. He even put that in his application. I have a good following, and I can introduce young boys and girls into the fan base of Red Bull X-Alps.
Yeah, that was very wise. Very wise.
So it worked for him. He got invited, but of course we can see that flying acro, even at the highest level, it's absolutely different to. I mean, we already know it's different to cross country or hike and fly, but it's completely different game than participating in Red Bull X-Alps and flying in all these conditions for 12 days. We like to there's this very, very common wisdom that training acro helps you fly cross country, and of course, to some point, it does, in the way that the better you have a handling of your glider, the better you will feel when something goes wrong. If you stalled your glider a few times and you understand how it can shoot like this, like that, you screw it up, you get twisted and you untwist, you find in the safe conditions, then you have way better muscle memory and way better reaction when something actually goes wrong in real life. Of course, it's important. This is why training over water or SIV type training, either with instructor or your own, it's important, and we should all do it not on daily basis, but let's say yearly, regularly. But at the same time, that's really going from dynamic full stall or from super stall to infinity. Does it really help you in participating in Red Bull X-Alps? No, let's be honest. It's so different in so many levels. The conditions are different. The gliders are different. It's just everything is different about it. So, so it's as much as it's fantastic to watch, it's not necessarily the same skill set that is needed for Red Bull X-Alps.
I really enjoy doing some light acro. I'll say light because nowhere near Theo De Blick, but I'm always working so hard to get up that when I have the altitude, I don't want to burn it. It's very useful to me. And, if I lose that altitude, there's a good chance that I'm going to have to land and pack up. And so I very rarely will lose the altitude.
And acro pilots, acro boys put it exactly opposite. I can't remember who told it. There's maybe Vesov, Chadov, that once he's high and is just about to fly cross country. No, it wasn't someone else. Some of the other acro pilots that when he's high and can use all this altitude for doing some crazy stuff, and instead it's supposed to just fly cross country. It means gliding and losing this all altitude slowly. I'm like, why would I do it if I can use it for all my tumbling and hellions? So you
That's
see
funny.
that exactly, and that's beautiful because basically the sky is big enough for all of us with all our
Yep,
goals and ambitions and
that's right.
and ways of losing altitude. Yeah.
That's right. By the way, the show is brought to you by Lone Star Paramotor. If you're in the Lone Star state of Texas, you can reach out to Ron Turan and his team to get some world-class training. His website is lonestarparamotor.com. Also, the show is brought to you by the beautiful Torrey Pines Glatterport. If you want to learn how to free fly and in the most beautiful place in the United States, in my opinion, you can reach out to Max Marion or any one of the guys at flytorrey.com. That's FLYTORREY.com. Really appreciate that sponsorship. That's one of my favorite places to fly. I kept getting messages from all my friends that watch golf, and the gliders were in the background of the U.S. Open this week, and so people kept messaging me, "Is that you?" And I wasn't flying there, but everyone that knows I'm a pilot thought I was messing with the golfers. I wasn't me. there was the guys who were flying their shadow across the green when they're putting, and they were the
That's
commentators.
awesome. We need some presence in media like this because
Yeah.
usually paragliders only appear in the mainstream media when something bad happens, you know.
Right.
And so we need some
True.
good PR.
Yeah, that's right. I want to talk a little bit about the new route, and I know it's kind of hard to tell from the ground, and we're looking at the this 3D models and whatnot. Talk a little bit about this new route, and do you think that they're going to go back to the original route after this year?
The route, of course, everybody noticed it's not going to Monaco this year, and it's doing this weird U-turn just after Mont Blanc, and there are very mixed feelings and opinions about this route. Personally, I think it's a real shame. Simply because the very core and soul of Red Bull X-Alps is crossing the whole arch of the Alps, and this is how it all started. That was the inspiration that Hannes Arch had when he in 2003 came up with this idea. This idea itself came from Tony Bender crossing the Alps from north to south, and then Hannes saw it and was like, whoa, if you can do it like this, let's do it this way. Let's make the race of it. And since then, everything about race changed. The new turn points appeared, the sign boards appeared, the night break, mandatory night rest was introduced, the night passes, and basically everything about the race changed. But this one thing, that the race is crossing the whole Alps, was one of the things that just stayed the same. That was the only core and soul of the Alps. And now, of course, just to stay a little bit with it before we get a little bit more into the route itself. When I say route, my friends laugh at me, but so even is making the race from Salzburg to Zell-am-See same as the race between Salzburg to Monaco? In my opinion, it's not, simply because it's X-Alps that was supposed to cross the Alps, and instead of basically crossing half of the Alps twice. So it's a bit for me like making a Paris-Dakar and make it from Paris to Nice and back. That's not exactly the same thing, even if the distance maybe the same. So yeah, I have mixed feelings, and also a lot of athletes have mixed feelings about it. Of course, I think this is quite obvious that French pilots are rather annoyed and disappointed that they can't fly throughout their homeland, and they can't use their knowledge of their local knowledge. Swiss pilots, like when I talked to Patrick before the race, he was very happy that such a big part of the route is going through through Switzerland, and basically it's going through their, as we mentioned, it's going through their backyard and the areas that they know so well from daily basis. So of course it's really nice for them, but even he said it's not the same. Yeah, and it's not. And I think it's a real shame. I would love the route to come back to original Monaco goal. And it's not that I'm such a Monaco fan. It's just that there's something epic. And I like I remember Paul Guschelbauer describing it when he made it there for the first time, and it was like you start in Salzburg in the east of the Alps, and then you cross all this epic terrain, zigzagging over the Alps and over glaciers and some really rough gorges and rocks, etc. And then you start, then you feel it changing. It's crossing the borders, it's the nature, the environment changes, and it's getting warmer, and it's getting the plants around you, and then at some point you smell the sea, and just there's something extremely epic and mind-blowing about it. And for me, that was always the goal, the raft on the Mediterranean. Doesn't matter if it's Monaco or somewhere else, but get all the way to Mediterranean from Salzburg, or just using your feet and glide there, and being able to do it in such a short time because you have all the support and safety network and logistics and help of your teammates. That's just the epic adventure within. And again, it doesn't mean that there's no adventure in this year's route, but I mean it turns on very different emotions in me personally. I always said that if I can take a podium and end up somewhere in the mid-France, or if I can be 10th but land on the raft in Mediterranean, I will choose raft every single time. This is like how important for me that this part was. But again, as we said, the race has its own has sponsors, partners, various business goals to meet, and apparently they felt like they can do it. And of course they can do anything they want with the race. So
my opinion is that they were probably influenced by certain cities being closed or being questionable due to the virus thing that was happening. And the other fact, like you mentioned, they pushed it through, they made it happen. And this was a route. I'm hopeful that it will change back to the normal route. And what I was going to mention is I haven't heard anyone, not one person say, oh, I really like this new route. Not one. So hopefully they get that message and consider.
I hope so. However, I also have the impression that maybe if we all say it out loud out there, then they will listen. So if you are listening, just comment. Where is bring the French Alps back? Take us all the way to Monaco or anywhere else out there. It was always a problem with Monaco. You know, there's like there was a logistic. It wasn't the easiest in Monaco itself, but also French towns and localizations weren't so interested in this paid sponsorship like a German-speaking part of the, especially like Tyrolean, Austrian, German, and Swiss places are, and this is a big income for the race simply. So this was the main reason for it, because of course COVID made everything complicated this year, and the logistics behind the organizing the race this year was way more difficult, with constantly changing rules and border controls was way more difficult than usual. So big kudos for making it happen. But the truth is that it didn't really have the new route didn't really have much to do with COVID. Had way more to do with the logistics around partnerships connected with turn points. Simply.
Interesting.
This is also the reason why every edition practically there's more and more signboards, because it's way more attractive for someone. If someone pays for if some mayor of the little town pays for it, they want the athletes to be there and pose with selfies, etc. Not just to fly a boat. It doesn't doesn't bring any tourists and fans into the town.
Wow. Well, we're at that 1 hour mark. We're going to go to the after show. I do want to mention Resurgence PPG. If you're interested in supporting our men and women of uniform, you can make a tax deductible donation to resurgencepppg.com by donating or sponsoring those who have put their lives on the line for your freedom. Reach out to Todd Scandrett at resurgencepppg.com. Thank you so much, all the people that have been supportive of the show. Thank you, Patreon supporters and PayPal supporters. You guys are awesome. We are going to go to the after show. Thank you, Sandor Rendeski. He said, great show. Kinga is awesome. And he donated $10 to the super chat. John Wayne donated $10 to the super chat. Thank you guys. Really appreciate you supporting the show. We are going to go to the after show. Thank you for watching. Kinga, thank you so much for making the time to come on the show. I absolutely love it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's do it again after the race, and maybe we'll fix the rest of the X-Alps problems.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Moderators, thank you. Sean, Anthony, I don't know where everybody else is. Appreciate you guys. And